Hamid Karzai had been meeting, as you say, with village elders and family members who lost loved ones in this attack, and this all happened inside the heavily fortified palace of Hamid Karzai. So it was with this audience that he made these comments, and the villagers and the survivors had been pressing him to seek justice for these killings. Now, what he said was he actually questioned whether the US had cooperated fully enough with the investigation into the attacks. He also seemed to back the impression of the villagers that there was perhaps more than one soldier involved in this incident. Now, that's obviously something that would contradict the official account of events from the very start, but the villagers are saying that they can't understand how one person could have inflicted so much damage. Hamid Karzai was dressed in sombre black for the beginning of two talks on what's happened in these villages. He was appearing to be tired and sometimes angry. He did have one lengthy exchange with a journalist who was pressing the Afghan president over exactly what, Miriam, he was saying about the relationship between the United States and Afghanistan now. Let's have a look at what happened.
It is by all means the end of the rope here.
The end of the road?
The end of the rope. There is nobody can afford such luxuries anymore, if you can call it luxury.
Does that mean your relationship with the United States is at the end of the road?
This form of activity, this behavior cannot be tolerated. It's past the time.
But you cannot fight the Taliban on your own, sir, with your own forces.
No, we can definitely do that. No, we can definitely, but that's the different question. Right now we are addressing this issue and we will look it up in an extremely diligent and forceful way.
And Jane, how much weight can we actually give to these statements by Hamid Karzai? Do we think that perhaps it's a case that he was playing up to the domestic audience there?
Well, he certainly has a history of that, and there's a lot of pressure on him. He's trying to walk the line between catering to this growing public anger in Afghanistan with the continued presence of Western troops, and also the awareness that he must have that the US remains his most important ally. Obviously, Washington installed him in the very first place, and his very survival as president and the survival of his government does rely on the US and NATO troops keeping his Taliban enemies at bay. And he can only be too conscious, too, of what happened to his predecessor, Mohammad Najibullah, when the Taliban took over in 1996. That Afghan president was tortured, castrated, and ended up hung up on a lamppost. So Hamid Karzai is really trying to balance his allegiances here, and he is saying that he wants the US troops to accelerate their withdrawal and their handover to Afghan security forces, but an immediate withdrawal or a hurried-up withdrawal wouldn't necessarily be in his interests either.
And of course, the US would be, feeling the heat quite a bit now in terms of a number of situations that have happened recently in Afghanistan. Has there been a response?
Yes, well, the US President Barack Obama has made another phone call to Hamid Karzai. The White House has put out a statement about what transpired in that conversation, and it's saying that the two leaders really reaffirmed the timeline for a full transition to Afghan security control in 2014. The White House is also saying that they agreed to discuss further Hamid Karzai's concerns about the presence of US troops in Afghan villages. But the problem is the type of operation that this soldier was part of, where you pair foreign forces with locals in these villages in stabilisation operations, are exactly the kind of operations that are integral and give the US the best hopes of transitioning out of Afghanistan. So it's a very difficult balance for both leaders.